Hey, hi Anders. Hi, can you guys see me and hear me fine? Or, one second, let me just check all the machinery if everything is working appropriately. Hi, everybody, how are you? Happy Tuesday! I hope some of you are going to be joining me live and really helping me to kind of like elaborate on this very useful it's basically NLP, so it's neuro-linguistic tool, or it's something that we use also in hypnosis, self-hypnosis, things like that, right? So it's something that we use in coaching. So for those of you who don't know me yet that well, my name is Helena Papes. Welcome into my group. This is basically your group for everything and all the things related to mindset, changing, brain rewiring, spiritually connecting to your purpose, and kind of like achieving the extraordinary results in ridiculous time collapsing events, right? And this is something where I'm deeply passionate about teaching, coaching, getting into the projects with you and creating those amazing results in a day, in a week, in a month, right? Like the more crazy, outrageous, and kind of like extraordinary pattern interruption for you. I mean, that's kind of like what I love, what I love the best. And it's where, as a coach, as a NLP practitioner, as a hypnotherapist, this is like my preference, because that's kind of like that's the skill that I get to practice, right? And then besides that, we add high ticket flagship offer creation, one-on-one flagship amazing transformational programs, group programs, how to sell, how to price, who to talk to, how to run, one-on-one clients or group, work, like all the things, right? And this has been such an instrumental part of my life that I wanted to share with you. And I need to double check if I can hear myself fine or if I'm not. Can you guys hear me? Like, is it better now? Okay. Need to make sure, because it was like I hope you guys heard that. So this is kind of like when you have like so many things going on, and mostly when people are like, what is happening, what is going on, I'm like, there's just so much, and I am so grateful for that, right? I couldn't be more grateful. So if anybody's with me here live, drop me an emoji. I'm gonna try to keep this short and sweet and like very practical, so that you can understand how you know we can all benefit from a technique that it's called, officially it's called, pattern interrupting. Different people call it, in different ways. You have even, like, of course, in spiritual spheres, you would call it a little bit differently, right? But it's actually all about how can we give ourselves a break from our own brain and kind of like allow new thought, basically a new thought to emerge, right? So this is something where you know how it is when you get all cycled in to something that you're not necessarily, it's not necessarily a positive momentum, right? So it can be deeply frustrating when you feel like, oh my God, like I keep repeating the same stuff, I keep getting the same results. Why am I not changing? Why am I not moving? And you're working, with therapists and coaches and all types of things, right? So this is where, if you are not familiar with, how the subconscious works, and, the numbers at the levels that the subconscious work, is kind of like if you would be comparing your computer or your iPhone right now to the phone, you know, in the 50s. Basically, that's it, right? So the phone in the 50s, you know, needed, you know, your personal attention, and it needed you to kind of like, you know, be there and stay with it and kind of like really dial in and, you know, remember all the numbers and kind of like really pay attention, right? And wait, you know, for somebody else to connect you, you know, to the world, right? And so when we talk about conscious and unconscious, the difference is significant, because the conscious mind is everything that goes around logic, everything that is around linear, everything that goes around, it can process seven, you know, give or take, you know, pieces of information, right? It has a very, very limited focus, right? And it has also, it's only present when we're awake, when we're in this conscious state of being, right? And so it also means that it's what we do consciously. So it's all the movements that I do consciously, the posture that I'm, you know, that I'm conscious about, the way I'm talking, so that I'm aware that I'm talking English now and not Slovenian, right? Or any other language, right? And then it's kind of like you are aware of the present moment and how, like, where you focus on. I'm aware of myself, I'm aware of my body, I'm aware of, you know, the laptop, the you know, the books, the mobile phone, the, you know, the lamp. I'm aware of all of those things, right? So that's like conscious mind, right? It's always processing, it's always intentional, and it's always thinking about things, right? Some of us are more, you know, intellectually inclined, so we think like all the time. We have a very fast and curious mind that loves to, you know, engage on different levels and is always curious and open, right? And it can get also overwhelmed, right? Because what most people, and especially in these times, are lacking, and, you know, they want to experience more of, is having that focus mindedness, is having that peace of mind, is having that making those decisions, like, and that goes from 1 minute to the next minute, basically. Or, you know, when you're working around your maybe weekly schedule, that's something you can do in advance, right? So it takes a little bit of preparation, you know, to allow yourself to be single-minded, you know, easier in your everyday life, right? And so we have processes for that, right? And we have tools and automations and, you know, people who can help us, you know, with our business and all the things, right? But basically, you know, when it comes up to, you know, day to day, it's up to us to say no to some of the things and then yes to other things, right? So this is all conscious mind, right? And this is conscious mind is always obsessed with what is happening right now, what is my reality, you know, and how can I, like, keep the homeostasis going, right? It's kind of like, you know, if I just turned you know, turned up the klima system, right? The how is it called? It's so the cooling system, right? So because it got hot, right? And, you know, I have interviews to do, so I don't want to be hot, right? So I just turned that up, right? So now, you know, my conscious mind is making sure that I'm not going to be hot and sweaty on this video, right? And that I can, you know, be clear-minded, right? So it's making sure that I eat and, you know, kind of like, and, you know, that I rest, and, you know, it's kind of like, it really depends what all things you have accepted or kind of like took responsibility over to make conscious, right? So it's not something that is just subconsciously running you, like people who just go, you know, when it's like 5 p.m. and they go, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten anything all day, anything, you know, meaningful, anything nutritious, and, you know, then they go and eat the whole, I don't know, Snickers bar, and, you know, 10 of them, right? And so that's something that is going to give them a bit of like instant pleasure and instant gratification, but it's not going to be benefiting the body, it's not going to be benefiting the health, it's not going to be benefiting the, you know, how they feel and how they look, basically, you know, after that, you know. And most likely they're also going to have a bit of like a bad conscience, you know, and all of that remorse that, you know, humans know and are very familiar with, right? So like all our consequences, all our actions have consequences, right? And so it pays out to invest in really investing and investigating our unconscious parts, and not just to that degree where, like, for example, when we're working on a financial leap with somebody, there's always going to be first emotional and mindset, like, so intellectual type of shift that is going to happen, right? So it's like a whole transformation, because you can't be really claiming let me go and be creating this like big financial leap, like, if you don't feel aligned with that, right? The word alignment here, I don't mean that just spiritually, but I mean also literally your thoughts need to align with your beliefs. If they don't do that, like, and if your thoughts don't align with your desire, something that you feel and resonate with, nothing is going to move, but you're going to be creating a lot of resistance in kind of like consciously going after the goal that you or somebody else set up, right? But nothing is going to be actually moving, nothing is going to be co-creating with you, because the unconscious, subconscious mind, that part of you, it needs guidance, like it needs like order, like it needs you to be the captain of the ship, otherwise it just goes where, like, it just goes to the sneaker bar. We all been there, okay? So when we compare the conscious to unconscious mind, and I was talking about the conscious mind first, right? The unconscious mind is what most people, refer to as the intuitive, right? So it's kind of like the intuitiveness. It's the invisible parts and sensations that we like. It's really like, it's more difficult to kind of like put, like, to like to say, like, this is what I'm feeling and this is why I'm feeling like that, or this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm getting, this is what I'm receiving. Like, it really depends, like, what type of a person you are, because some people are more kinesthetic receivers, some people are more audio, video, like it can be through images, right? Like it really depends what type of like a receiver you are, right? And so this is only beneficial because then how, like, what is the easiest, fastest, best way to influence yourself. And so if you're like a kinesthetic person, so you kind of like feel through touch or through somebody's presence, or you get the visual when you're having a session, for example. Like, a lot of coaches is like that, they just kind of like pick up stuff, or feel it in their body. Then that's and it's something that it's of great value. And this is one of the things that people don't understand how it works. They don't know how to market, they don't know that it's a part of their genius process, they don't know how to include that into their work, and they don't know how to charge premium and get premium pricing for that. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so pay attention. So the unconscious mind is intuitive, and it's unconscious, and it works simultaneously. So it's like all things at the same time, right? It's kind of like female and masculine, like it's those tendencies, right? And it actually can process, or it can pick up to a million bits, of information, or approximately, even, I'm reading some information because obviously I'm not good at remembering those numbers, right? But it's kind of like it can pick up million bits of information, I think per minute or something, or per second even. Like, it's just insane, right? I didn't. Okay, that was not. I need to check that out. Like, it's an important, right? So compared to conscious mind, which can only pick up like 7 pieces of information in, let's say, a minute. I think it's a minute, or it can be even a second. Like you have this unconscious mind which can pick up to a million. So you have the old 50s phone, and then you have the newest iPhone, or whatever is your preference, right? And then it has unlimited focus, right? It has unlimited focus. Get that. The focus of the unconscious mind is unlimited. Okay, of course it can process millions of bits of information. Okay, and it's kind of like how I would describe the sensation, how it feels. And I'm sure this is something you've experienced over and over again. And if not, you should definitely be practicing this, because the more we practice this consciously, the more this is like a part of our daily routine. Even when we go about, let's say, when we have like this intense creation, let's say live launch or sales process or whatever, it's gonna do you better, to go and have like a 15 minute like a power nap and be conscious about it, or like a 5-10 minute like type of like meditation, with a very very specific intent to it. Then if you go off and you sleep, or if you drink 10 coffees, it's gonna have incrementally different type of outcome for you, and kind of like the influence that you're gonna feel from that, because your intuition is just gonna go like right. And coffee doesn't do that. Coffee does the opposite, kind of, right? So it goes also with all the unconscious movements, right? So it also takes charge of all of our like inner organs, like how how our heart is beating, how our brain is functioning, how our blood is pumping through the veins. That's all a part of the unconscious mind. And it can actually memorize all the memories, right? Mind you, when we're talking about the 4-step genius method, right? The story part that we tend to remember and we have kind of like captured as our own story, as our like, this is what I've lived and this is, what I've been through. Like, this is where like I would always challenge that story, because the moment we start to reframe that story, in good or in bad, right? It really doesn't matter, right? Like, whatever the lack in that story was, right? This is something where it takes an inexperienced ear to hear that, right? But it's kind of like wherever we made ourselves believe that we were experiencing lack, or something was not done right, or this is something that was really really bothering us, or this is something where I really should have been treated differently, or something like that, right? And please remember, like, our memory is not the most reliable thing, right? Because you can just see whenever, I don't know, you have a fight between two people, partners, for example. One person is going to claim, this is what you said, and the other person is going to claim, I never said that in my life, right? Just with that, like, very very interesting example, right? You can see that two different people are going to be having a very different story into and be believing a different reality about things. It's so interesting, right? And you can see how your brain is wired, and then also if you don't like some of the things, how you are being, how you are reacting, how you're talking, how you are earning, how you're making love, how you're partnering, how you're being there for your children, you have the opportunity to change that. Mind you, it's not 100, like, it's not a 50s phone anymore where there was like only one option, like dial in, right? It's not that anymore. It's iPhone 10 or whatever it is right now, right? And it's like unlimited, almost, like, options. There's always an option for upgrade. There's always an option for downloads. There's always an option for, a new app. There's always an option for, having all your photos reviewed. And you go like, when was this? Like, what was that? Like, what was the mood there, right? And it's like, because at least, photos or videos don't necessarily lie, but they do tell, again, like a very, very specific story, right? So the unconscious mind is where we do things automatically. So that means even though you might make a conscious decision, let's just say, like we all did, I'm gonna lose weight or something, right? Or I'm gonna start earning more money. Even when we make that conscious decision, because we are aware of the pile of the bills, that it's lying, on our table, and we make that, we're clear, like, we need to be making more money, I need to be bringing more in, I'm fed up, like, this is just not enough, right? Like, even when we do that, like, the pattern, the story, the belief that we hold about ourselves and where we come from, what we are capable of, how fast can we be earning that money, what all do we need to do before we can do that, who all do we need to talk to or ask for permission or delegate, or what all, I don't know, websites we need to be creating before we can be asking for XYZ. All of that becomes a story that is not helping you in, for example, earning more money, right? That's why if you just saw Olivia, she just like, and Daniela was the same, she just went for it and she just did what we call like, it's just imperfect action. And it's like imperfect action is always better than no action, or perfect inaction, right? So it's kind of like the pattern interrupt was, like, oh my god, oh my bills, right? What can I do about it, right? And then, oh, I have options, right? Like that realization is always important, right? I can change this, right? And I actually want to change this, right? I'm not talking about Olivia right now, I'm talking about everybody else, right? Or relationship, it can be any issue really, right? And it's like you have the opportunity to change that, but the pattern interrupt is always going to be 180 from whatever you used to be doing so far, and was not necessarily working to your best, for your best interest, right? And so this is where the unconscious mind is also very much, it's automated the response, so you feel like as if something takes over you, or oh my god, I'm in a program, it feels like somebody's driving the car but it's not you, right? And so this is like the fun part, because you realize, oh my god, I'm sitting in the back seat and I feel like I don't have any control, I'm stuck here with my old phone, right? Like nothing is working in my favor. And you can see through the windows that you are in this new century where things are moving fast, right? Where things are moving with speed, where things are moving with alignment, right? And you want to become a part of that. And I totally get that, okay? Because the unconscious part of us is the part where it feels, it just communicates through emotions. It communicates through all the area of emotions that we have. And it's kind of like showing us, it's kind of like a GPS in that car. It's showing us like, okay, this direction, I'm taking this direction, I'm getting this hint, this is the direction I need to be taking. Okay, a bumpy road, am I okay with a bumpy road? Okay, feels good, no worries, okay, I can take it, right? And you go and you enjoy the bumpy road, right? And you go and you continue through that bumpy road, right? But the decision was when you were at the crossroads, and this is where you kind of like decided that you don't want to be stuck in the same old pattern, and that's why you were like, I just want to take any other road than the road that I've been so far on. Does this make sense? Okay. And so this is where you start creating your own pattern interrupt, because the interrupting somebody's like psychomotor like expressions and patterns can be like extremely disorienting, right? Like it can influence our, like people become a little bit confused, let's put it like that, right? So every time that a client tells me I'm confused, I don't know how to proceed, I don't know like what's like, I'm not like, I'm a little bit confused, but it's like it's a good confusion. I'm like, awesome, like there's something is coming through, something new, let's listen, let's open up space, let's open up that mind so that you can actually be receiving what is next for you, because it's not my story, it's going to be her success story. Do you understand how different that this is than anybody else's coaching or whatever you're experiencing right now? Okay, so this is where you can actually start going and trusting and feeling and intuiting your own genius. A method is going to be kind of like taking you and kind of like leading you into this exploration and kind of like inviting you into all these new adventures, right? And it's kind of like it's our, basically what I always say, it's our responsibility to trust that pattern interrupt moment and go fully in on that, right? Because just writing it all out and trusting something good, something amazing, something uniquely wonderful is going to emerge from that. And now we come to the level of where I see a lot of people start to struggle because they lack positive faith, they lack positivism, they don't know how to support themselves through that process so that they don't feel like, oh my God, I'm back into my old pattern, I'm back into the backseat of the car. Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I want to move forward, I want to sit in front, right? I want to be the one who's in charge, I want to be the boss, right, of me. I want to I want to master this, right? And this is where, of course, like, you're going to feel disoriented, you're going to feel frustrated, you're going to feel like you're losing yourself, like you're going to feel all the things that everybody feels when they're kind of like playing with with the field of conscious and unconscious field. And this is totally normal. It's not comfortable, but it's normal, right? And this is something where you can actually expect, because our present reality, whatever that is, it's very firm, it's very visible, it's very like real, right? So it has to compete all the time with the reality that we're creating in the superconscious mind, as we call it, right, in NLP. So the superconscious mind is where we connect with hypnosis, where we get into alpha states, where we see things, where we feel things that are not here yet, right? This is where any type of manifestation that is different than whatever we were experiencing right now begins. But for that, for allowing that crossroad, we need to accept and be willing and kind of like surrender to this kind of like a pattern interrupt moment, which is people don't even know like how this goes, because most likely it's kind of like being so aware of the client's story or whatever is going on in any type of conversation. So that includes your marketing. This is big, right? Including your marketing, because if you're not talking to your clients or individuals, unconscious desires, then your marketing is really just addressing the basic need of I need a phone, let me give you that phone, and that's it, right? Marketing, copywriting, all of that, like pre-selling, so that you make sure that you have those soul clients and ideal client. They need to be connected to your genius, or to your super conscious mind, as we call that, or to your ability to see through the person's story directly into the desire, into the heart, into the soul of the person, right? And talk to that, because then you actually get the clients who have those amazing results and who want to be on board and who are so ready to do the action, to do whatever it is that you're trying to like figure out how to be doing with them, right? But this only happens again when we align, so it's kind of like you need to align the conscious and the unconscious desires, right? In the same kind of like direction. They need to be moving in the same direction, right? And people really need to be kind of like engaging this new behavior, like with this light spirit, with joy, with excitement, even when it's like frustrated and confusing, but like trusting that it's going to be guiding them into something new. Because in reality, I mean, there's nothing for you to lose. There's nothing for you to lose, really. So this is where and there's so many ways, and I'm sure like a lot of people does this very, very differently. I'm just trying to go through my notes. Don't worry about that. It's kind of like what people feel like, why is somebody being rude? Why are they interrupting my story? I was just going over my story again, how life, this and that. But actually, it's kind of like it's a duty of any good coach, right, to interrupt our stories. This is what it says in the in the baseline of any coach, right? Like they have this obligation and duty, and they need to be kind of like allowing you to experience something else, something different than just what you're experiencing right now. So any good coach is going to be interrupting your story, like every time, right? So if somebody comes and it's like, for example, I want to earn another, 10K a month. And I'm like, that's like what everybody kind of like think they want, right? But at the moment I challenge them with, like, okay, so how much did you earn last year? And they tell me that amount. And I'm like, okay, so how would you feel like if we would just turn that amount into your monthly income, and then eventually we would turn that into one sale? How would that feel for you? And then they pause and they go, that would be freaking awesome. Can we do that? And I'm like, sure. Are you willing to put, are you willing to put in the work that's needed to do that? And they're like, yes. I'm like, awesome. Let's go, right? Because 10K months, that's just something on a logical level, because people have figured out that, they can live in a nice mediocre life with 10K months, right? But it's not really what it's going to stir up your soul, right? So we need to be much more high flying in that vision and high achieving, if you will, right? So that's why high achievers, even though they experience upturns and downturns and upturns and downturns, because they are kind of like more projecty persons, so they love engaging in the project, and they love maybe more starting the project than kind of like ending the project, or whatever, right? It really doesn't matter, right? But there's a lot of creative energy in that. There's a lot of like love, there's a lot of like spirit in that, right? And so this is kind of like when people start off with that story, and I'm like, okay, so this is the story, right? And like, so what can you learn from this, like, right? Like, what is the like, if you could just sum up like your whole life story in one sentence, what would that be? Okay. And so when they do that, I always go and kind of like tap into like what is not being said. Hi, somebody joined me. I can see that. I think I cannot see anything. So if somebody, like, this new Facebook thingy with the lives is just not very friendly. So if there's any comments or anything, which of course I love, I'll come back to them later. But for now, I cannot see a damn thing. So keep that in mind. So you have to remember that people will always be telling just like what they know to be true, what they know to be conscious, right? So it's only going to be a small part of the real story, right? And so always be kind of like in inquiring on what it is that you're not telling me. How would this story look like if you had everything, if you had it all that you kind of like think that you're like lacking, right? And then also just kind of like you can be you can be pattern interruption of the pattern can stop very very like abruptly, and it can go in terms of like so how long, like, this is the pattern that you're doing, how long would you still like to be doing that pattern? Like, it seems like you're having fun with it, or you obviously love it, because every pattern is giving us some type of safety, is giving us some type of security, is giving us some type of like what we call like normality, right? So it's in that sense, it's what it feels safe, right? And that's why people, we repeat that, we state that, like, it's kind of like the homeostasis inside of our own minds, right? And so, but whenever people get really really frustrated, then what they start to think about and what they need to be hearing, and what any coach should be asking is like, how long do you plan to be repeating that this paradigm or this pattern or this problem or this situation, like when is it going to be enough, right? Because there needs to be that decision, there needs to be that interruption of the pattern, and that's usually going to be happening with a firm decision, and then a complete 180. And we see this like every day, right? Because you have people who decide like, I'm going to stop smoking, and then they stop smoking like the next day. But what everybody kind of like, if they're not doing any hypnosis work, what they forget to tell you is that they've been thinking about it for, I don't know, 6 years, right? Which is, it's a very normal human behavior. But what I'm telling you, when you start tapping into the superconscious, conscious, and unconscious minds with much more, with daily intention, with daily care, and you actually start to actively engage that into like in your life and incorporate into your business, can you like, do you remember I was talking about, I think it's like 1 billion, it's 1 billion bits of information that you can actually process. So, I mean, you would never trust Google again because you just have it here. It's here. right? It's here. And so it's only like, us forgetting about that and kind of like allowing that, other people become our source, or our, source of wisdom, or source of information, so source of wealth, even like in a job situation, right? That's just the source. I'm sorry, I just had to turn up the computer. I had to plug it in. So does this make sense? Like, right? So you can see how, a pattern interrupt can also be, if your family or whatever is doing things in a certain specific way, let's say, spending a lot of time in front of the television, or eating crappy food, or not communicating well, or whatever, you always have to know that you have that possibility to change that in a heartbeat. It just takes that, like, it takes decision, that it's informed, of course, right? And it takes what we call, like, you need to have a strategy, right? You need to have a strategy, because like any type of like hypnosis or trance or addiction, how people call that, right, needs to be replaced with some other form, but more positive form, a different form of, addiction, trance, hypnosis, right? That's why people, who use drugs or whatever, they find it very valuable in switching that for running, for example, or doing sports, right? That's why, people who, I don't know, I've known people who, went from very, very like meat based diet, and then they just switched into, 100% vegan, right? And had no issues with that, and stayed there for, a long time, right? So like, you can see that like a human mind, or, a human body even, is capable of doing basically anything that we put our mind to. And it's the same with creating money, because I love this topic, because it's still so thought-provoking for so many people. It's easier to earn or to create 100K leap than it is to earn 100K per year. It's easier to create that leap than to earn 100K per year. It's easier to have 100K month than it is to have 100K year. And it's easier to have 100K launch than to have 100K year. And I want you to chew on that, and I want you to to be like, to get excited about all the possibilities, right? Because for some reason, the focus, the unconscious is always going to bring that powerful information through. And even when you feel like, oh man, this is going to be so uncomfortable, all the work that I'll have to be doing for that, right? You know that it's going to be tied into your purpose. So you're kind of like, okay, let's do this, right? Because as long as you are walking towards more awareness and more self-mastery and more like emotional maturity, right? And we all go through this in a various different ways, right? Like my generation has experienced this in a different way. Like we're like over 40, right? So we've done our share, and we are still doing like very, very active work, right? But when we started this work, like it was just called, woo-woo, or, it was not even as defined as it was, as it is now. So you can see, how many things evolve immensely in a matter of like a decade, right? So think about that. Like think where we're going to be, think what your unconscious mind is telling you, where are you going to be? What are you going to be inspiring? Who are you going to be inspiring in, 10 years? Like, who are you going to become? And then, like lean into that vision. And kind of like ignore the reality for a second or a day or a week, because the reality is, as much as it's kind of like important to take care of every practical detail, take care of our children and all of that. I'm not saying that that's not a thing, right? I'm just saying that if when we stop being so obsessed about our present story, about our conscious reality, then we can start to detach from it, and we can start actually be creating this new way of being, which is the crossroads decision that you get to make about who is going to be driving your car and what type of phone are you going to be using while you're doing that. Okay, does this make sense? I hope it does. Okay, let me see if I forgot anything. I have a very interesting podcast right after this live when I'm going to be talking about the hypnosis. So I'm going to be, I'm not even sure when that's going to be ready to share, but it's going to be super, super exciting. So I'm going to leave you with that, right? And this is like, if you can't see the connection between how this like continuous type of work is, you know, and what type of seeds in mindset and thinking and believing and wealth creation are, you know, being created when I have that initial talk, just, you know, with the clients, DM me and I can actually show you, you know, and I can actually showcase you, because that's like it, you know, theory, it sounds all, you know, it can sound like way, I don't know, like ethereal, like it, you know, it, like as if it's not practical, but it's very, very practical, right? And it just means a willingness to to create that pattern interruption in your life story right now, and that ability to be like, oh, wow, I can go and be creating that reality. And I'm like, yes, yesterday, right? So it's all about that reality bending, time collapsing, financial leaps. It's all created here. It's all created, you know, through our aligned action. Because if our action is not aligned, you will hear crickets. There will be no results. Like that's just what is gonna happen, period, right? And you can be stubborn and in your ego and stuck in your reality and claim that you know, right? That's like, that's what it is. Like then, you know, we're always be looking at the results, always be looking at the outcomes, always be looking at the, you know, real transformation. As Daniela is going to be sharing in her video testimonial, real transformation is something that a person can feel, sense, mentally notice, right? And it's going to show in financial, you know, in the bank account. That's something I've been saying for years, right? So for those of you who want to join me on that journey, you know where to find me. I'm in the DMs, where you get to have that first contact with me around this conversation. So, and if you have any questions around pattern interrupt or how or what or why, just comment this video or DM me, and we can have that specific call, you know, scheduled for you. And until then, have the most powerful and beautiful Tuesday, and start thinking, how would it feel like? What would it look like if whatever you're earning now yearly would be your monthly paycheck, and whatever you're earning monthly would become your one sale? I'm just putting it out there, okay? Or one launch, okay? I'm just putting it out there for you to start think about things that actually matter also, you know, for you and for your family in the longest run, okay? Let's get more vocal about that, okay? Okay. Have a wonderful day. Love you. Bye-bye.